Welcome everyone to the lectures for UEBQ 4734, Topic 1, Section 1.14, in relation to your extension of time. Previously, last week, we have covered until the procedure for claiming. So, after you claim for extension of time, there are the relevant clause applicable. That is your 23.1 plus others. That is the procedure for extension of time. So once you already submitted everything, then the architect will start assessing the extension of time. So the clause allowing the architect to assess is provided under clause 23.3. Okay, so 23.3 will only commence when contractor have complied with this. All the particulars, okay, within the time frame. That is, the contractor submit everything within the 28 days required after the end of the activity. Be careful, 23.1b is at the end of the activity. Contractor must submit within 28 days. So if the submission is complete, then the consultant will evaluate. If it is incomplete, then architect or the consultants will ask the contractor to provide which areas that are deficient. That means incomplete. So only after the incomplete part are complied, the deficient part complied, from that day, the consultants will start their evaluation. Okay, so these are the process. First, after the completion of the so-called extension of time activity, contractor need to supply all the particulars already. But before that, contractor will invoke clause 23.1a. That is, before the event start or anything, there is an AI or instruction given, then within 28 days, contractor must inform whether there is time claim or that is entitled under the contract. Okay, there is a relevant clause to trigger the extension of time claim. Then, once the activity completed, the contractor must submit all the particulars within 28 days. So, after submission already, if there is a deficiencies, then the architect will ask the contractor to comply with the deficiencies within the 28 days or the extended time. So these are the procedures. It's important because these are the duration will affect the contractor's entitlement. So how to inform? It must be in writing. The architect must give in writing. So all these are important procedures that the architect need to comply and also the contractor need to comply. Okay. So once it's already completed, everything comply, then the architect will have not the QS, the architect will have within 6 weeks after receiving all the particulars. That is either there is no further information, or if there is a further information, the contractor need within 20 days to give it to the architect. Okay, so once architect receive in full already all the submission required, okay, then the architect will have to evaluate that EOT submission for that particular activity or task. Remember, EOT is for each item, activity or task. So after that already completed, the architect will have to evaluate and need to provide with reasons. The architect to issue the certificate extension of time, how long, together with reason. Previously in your earlier PAM 2006, this is not a requirement. In 2018, this is something new. So in future, if you handle PAM contract 2006, I believe you still will be handling, because some projects are running because of the COVID-19 dragged very much longer. So you have a lot of contracts still under the 2006 PAM document. Okay, so PAM 206, you don't need to give reason, but 2018, the architect must give reason and state the clause. The reason will be which clause to use to grant you the necessary extension of time. Why this is important? It's because that contractor will make use of all these reasons plus your clause stipulated to appeal or to proceed to the next level, whether they are entitled for additional money or not. Okay, so that is if you were to give certificate extension of time. Okay, sometimes may reject, not necessarily they give, they may reject the extension of time. Also need to give the reason. Okay, so this is how the evaluation of extension of time by the architect. So in order for the architect to evaluate properly, this is what the contractor must do. That's why I say the working program or revised working program is very important. When you submit your extension of time claim, the contractor must support it with working program of the day. It means, let's say your delay is on March. You have to use the working program approved around that time to use as a basis for your extension of time evaluation. If there is a revised already after this extension of time, you have a new or revised working program that could be applicable for activity that is delayed during the month of May or June. I hope you are clear. This March one with the extension of time granted already is revised already. Okay, so once it's revised, it could be revised by the contractor in the month of April or May. So that new revised program, working program, will be used as a basis for extension of time claim for that particular activity that falls in the month of April or May to do the evaluation. So please remember, you cannot go and make use of a working program that is already obsolete to base your computation. It is going to be very, very embarrassing. You must use the working program of the day or in relation to the activity that you are claiming. So please remember this important point. The updating of the working program is important. How the working program are updated? Usually two major grounds. Ground number one, extension of time are granted for the activities or activity. Then you revise it to see what is the overall new project duration. Okay, number one. Number two, that is with architect certificate extension of time. The other one is no certificate. Contractor had to revise it because of the problems at the project site beyond the contractor's control. So the program can be revised even though there is no certificate. But when you revise, the time to complete must be maintained according to that so-called extended time provided by the consultant. So you cannot go and revise a program and then you want something longer and ask architect to approve. No. as long as there's no extension of time given, your revision of the program due to the contractor's so-called shortfall in terms of subcontractors, material, machinery, whatever, you can revise, or even the sequence of work change, no problem. You're allowed to revise because nobody can stop the contractor in revising the working program. So this is the second type of the revision. But the second type revision, you shouldn't exceed the time that is allowed at whichever project phase. Okay, so this is an important principle. Okay, contractor to provide the estimate of the delay. How? By using the working program to support. And then it's up to the consultant, that is the named architect, to evaluate them. So once the evaluation is done already, it's up to the contractor whether to accept or not to accept it. So this is how it is done. So normally, as usual, when submitting the details, may need information. Okay, so it is exactly the same. That is the initial part. When you submit all your full details, if it's not complete, the architect will ask for new information. Then within 28 days, the contractor must provide. So similarly here, the architect at any time will ask for new information under the evaluation process. If new information are provided, then the architect needs to evaluate the extension of time based on the revised submission by the contractor. So that you can see the architect, if any query to the contractor, will have another 6 weeks to do the evaluation. If there is no more of this query, then architect need to do it within 6 weeks of the first submission. So this one is the second submission. So also within 6 weeks of the second submission by the contractor. Similarly, the architect may extend or reject the extension of time with reason. So this is the procedures on how the evaluation or extension of time is done under your PAM 2018. So once the evaluation is done already, the architect will issue the certificate of extension of time. So this is a certificate. So then this is the official piece of paper to be used by the contractor to revise the working. So the working program can be revised. I already mentioned just now, 2 ways. Number one, where there is an official issue of EOT, and number two, at the contractor's own discretion, because of the method to construct the project is changing due to many items, subcontractors problems, material problems, equipment problems, and so on. So now, if the certificate of extension of time is given, contractor, if agree, then you recalculate the time of your new revised duration based on the agreed. More often than not, when contractors submit the extension of time, they may ask for, let's say, 50 days. Okay, so when architect evaluate, may give the contractor 30 days. So if it is 50 days, contractor submit and only you get 30 days. If you agree, 30 days will be the official one. And then your revision of your working program must be based on 30 days for that particular activity. If you disagree, then the next thing is you have to challenge this one by arbitration. Clear? So if disagree with the EOT, granted. Then if you want, you have to challenge it by the arbitration to review the architect's decision. Okay? Because the principle is this: architect act professionally is only bound to grant extension of time. So whether you agree or not agree is a separate exercise. Okay, so architect is professionally acting as in evaluation of the extension of time. Architect is acting professionally, is no more the employer's agent. It is something to act professionally, fairly, and reasonably. Okay, so as long as the architect fixed the time and it is reasonable in according to the architect's evaluation, architect have discharged the duty. If architect were to fix something unreasonable, then you do not agree, you ask the arbitrator to do the re-evaluation. So this case here, if you look at your arbitration clause, is this item is the subject of immediate because these are critical in terms of extension of time. Because if you delay the extension of time, then the contractor cannot reprogram. So you were giving a lot of problem, a lot of claims in future. So this, if not happy, then you will go for arbitration, and this one is immediate arbitration. That's a very special case. There are few cases where you can go immediate arbitration. One of them is extension of time. The second one is the certificate. Yeah, we are not happy with the figure, you can go for even arbitration, okay, because it's all reviewable, whatever decision made by the architect. So here you are, notice of immediate arbitration under the clause. Okay. So as usual, there's another rule in granting extension of time or whatever. Okay. So architect can take account omission of the work instructed, because omission, that means the work is getting less already. So the duration in common sense, if the work is reduced, then the duration should be reduced. Okay, so I'm talking about individual situation. Let's say the project, there is no additional work, there is no problem of extension of time. Now architect issue a omission of the work. Can the architect reduce the original contract duration? Question: if there is pure omission of the work, can the architect reduce the original contract duration? Answer is not possible. This is the principle behind it. So the moment the contract is signed for 12 months, even though you omit half of the project, you cannot say, okay, 12 months is do this, half of it, then finish it in 6 months. Sorry, that common sense is not workable under the contract environment. The rule is this: once the contract is signed for 12 months, and even your omission is 10, 20, or 30%, you cannot reduce the original contract duration by 10 or 20 or 30%. You can't. You must stick to the original contract duration for the contractor. Okay? So this is something for you to remember. Don't think that using your common sense is correct. Totally wrong. Okay? So grant and extend. See, this is what it tried to say. Whatever omission that you want to do, finally, you cannot fix a completion date earlier than the original completion. This is what I'm trying to say. If there is omission and addition, you can contra. Ultimately, it must be equal or longer than the original date of completion. Let's say it's another situation, okay? Omission work and addition work. So you can factor the two. The architect can do a so-called computation at the back of his mind or something objective in the evaluation. But no matter how, the omission cannot be more than the original contract duration. That is the principle is this. Whether you omit or add, the overall figure must be equal or more than the original contract duration. You cannot reduce the so-called the original contract duration. Another important aspect, architect cannot reduce or withdraw the extension of time already granted. Okay, so this example, if architect issue extension of time number 1 granted already 40 days, then extension of time number 2 granted another 20 days, so altogether 60 days. Okay? Then extension of time number 3, the architect says, okay, this extension of time number 3, I want to re-evaluate extension of time number 1 and number 2. 40 days become 30 days and 20 days become 10 days under your EOT number 3. That is not possible. Once it is granted, you cannot reduce or withdraw that extension of time. So now you understand the principle of extension of time. Okay, these are all very important for you when in your working life when you deal with this. These are all very hot topic in the construction environment. Please understand the principle well. Don't use common sense under this place. You're going to be totally wrong. Okay. So now this one is talking about events occur after the certificate of non-completion. So you see there are situations when architect already issues certificate of non-completion, but later they found out, oh, there is another item appearing during the construction phase under the so-called elongated time frame. There is extension of time needed. So pursuant to clause 23(9). Okay. The architect can grant extension of time for these newly discovered events or items. Okay. And that extension of time will be added to the previous completion date of the work. It could be the whole works, or it could be part of the work. So generally, it happens to be the whole of the work. Okay. So, or any section of the work. So if this happen, then the certificate of non-completion earlier issued is considered null and void. Repeat, if there is an extension of time occur after certificate of non-completion issued, the certificate of non-completion that is previously issued shall be considered superseded or null and void. Okay, so this is another clause here, clause 23(10). This is a very interesting clause, but chances of architect using it, I believe, is very, very rare. So clause 23(10) is for the architect's discretion within 12 weeks. So this one, there is a constraint within 12 weeks after the practical completion. That means CPC issued already. Within 12 weeks, architect got the right to review and fix another date. So this one is without any contractor's application. It is an independent review by the architect. So just to check, do you think architect will do this on behalf of the contractor? Okay. So the moment that the architect will use 2310, it means architect is carrying out an independent evaluation for any extension of time, not look into it or not analyze properly. So then they come up to review it. So it could mean that earlier there must be some problems or error, or sometimes there are genuine situations. So the principle is this. These are the rights given to the architect. Whether architect would like to make use of this clause 23, that is the power given to the architect to review within 12 weeks after CPC, okay, without any contractor's application. Okay, the importance of this is this. If there is a review, it means the extension of time is granted, so the delay will be reduced and the LD imposed will be less. This is the important implication. The LD, if were to impose to the contractor, will become less. Okay. So all this must link to the relevant event. Architect cannot say, okay, I give you another 10 days or 20 days. No such thing. Okay. The extension of time granted must be tied back to the relevant event under your clause 23.8a to y. If it's outside, the architect is in trouble. Okay. So these are important points for you to remember. As usual, no final review can reduce the extension of time already confirmed. Repeat, no? Whatever review by the 2310 can go positive, can never go negative, like earlier principle. Okay? So what is the significance of this exercise? It means that the amount of LD entitled to be retained could be reduced because any over retention or no deduction have to return to the contractor. That means employer have to repay any surplus. If earlier you deduct already, now this 10 days are granted extra. So that then the employer have to repay the 10 days of LD that is already deducted earlier. When to pay? Within the next honoring period. Okay, so these are important principles on how this works. Okay, what is the consequence of granting extension of time? This is an interesting issue. So the consequence of granting extension of time, this may trigger the contractor's rights to claim for loss and expense. So that's why you can see, but not all of them can claim for loss and expense. The word is may. The word here is may trigger. So how to find whether the extension of time the contractor can claim for loss and expense? You have to look into your clause 23.8 and 24.3. Repeat, no? You need to understand the content of clause 23.8 and 24.3. Okay, so this 23.8, a relevant event. Okay, so this relevant event, if I grant extension of time on all these four, they say extension of time, if the consultant use 23A, B, C to grant, then you can check. This is the clause commencement for the contractor to claim loss and expense under your clause 24.3. Okay, so 24.3. In order for the contractor to be able to claim loss and expense under the clause 24, you must tie back to the relevant event entitle you to claim for loss and expense due to matters affecting the regular progress of the work. So what are the matters affecting regular progress of work? Is the events happen at clause 23.8. Okay, so now you can see first item entitled the contractor to claim for loss and expense is contractor not having received in due time necessary document. So this is one of them. Contractor didn't receive the document in due time. See here? So if the consultant used the clause 23.8e to grant the extension of time, then this is a ground for the contractor to claim for loss and expense. So are you clear now? Okay. So what I'm trying to say is this: not all extension of time granted allows the contractor to claim for loss and expense. So you need to study clause 23.8a to Y and then compare with clause 24.3a to O. See, A to Y under the EOT and then the relevant event 24.3a to O is shorter. Y here, O there. See, so there are few events that not entitled the contractor to claim for loss and expense. So please study them carefully. If you want, you can cut the two of them and paste next side to one another. Then you can compare already. Oh, which one entitled, which one not entitled. It's quite easy to do. Please, as a homework, go back and do it. Cut and paste side by side. Then you know already which one entitled for extension of time and loss and expense. Which one only entitled for time only, but no money. Okay, so how to get your things done? The consequence, you need to look into the contractor's procedure to claim. So every time there are always procedure to be complied. Okay, so and also the items to be there. So you can look at clause 24.3 A to O. These are all the relevant event entitling the contractor to claim loss and expense due to extension of time granted by the consultant or the architect. Okay. So this clause 24.3a to N, it doesn't give the contractor, sorry, clause 24, it doesn't give the contractor blanket clause to claim everything. No, this clause does not give the contractor the blanket right to claim. It means that you need to claim contractually. Okay, the acts is confined to the certain acts under clause 24.3a to 24.3o. Okay, so this clause doesn't give the contractor a blanket to claim for the money. Okay, it's different from common law position. Okay, if under the common law position due to the act of prevention by the employer, so this is a common law position. You don't claim under contractual, you claim under the common law. So what we are doing now, this one is not applicable. Just tell you the difference between common law claim and your contractual claim. So in your contractual claim, your rights is under clause 24. And which item to be able to claim is reflected for the events under clause 24.3a to 24.3o. Okay, So this is how the extension of time can trigger the loss and expense claim. You read through your 24.3a to O is linked back to your 23.8a to Y. Okay, I give you another example. Just choose one. Okay, any act of prevention by the employer. You have this 23.8n. Let's say the consultants evaluate extension of time under 23.8n. Okay, then do you think the contractor got the right to claim for loss and expense? You look at 24.3 and see whether there is a similar description. Okay, act of prevention by the employer. Can you see? So you claim loss and expense under 24.3H. Clear? Okay. The EOT granted is 23.8. N. Okay. And then loss and expense entitlement 24.3H. See how are they linked? Huh? So you can see when you compare the two, you know the linkage already. Okay. So this how you link between the extension of time and the loss and expense entitlement. So please remember, loss and expense 24 clause, the clause 24 is strictly related to loss and expense due to extension of time. You don't simply use other loss and expense claim and then you go back to your clause 24. Repeat. Clause 24 is only relevant when there is a extension of time granted under the clause 23. You don't go and claim for loss and expense when other clauses are triggered. It may claimable, but you need to look at it distinctly. So I go back to the clause again. More often than not, it ties back to your extension of time. Okay. So now, in this case, this is not related to extension of time. Clause 6.3. So this one, you can use 24.3G. Then if something happened to clause 6.3, then you can claim. Okay. So then this one you can claim under clause 33.1. More often than not, most of the claim under this category is belonging to the extension of time. Okay. So only certain types only, they are non-extension of time that you entitle you to claim. Like all these things will be without the clause stated here. It will be the extension of time claim. All these are empty. It will be extension of time. It's only when there is a special clause that is put there. That clause is the entitlement other than extension of time. Like this one. This one will be more towards the site possession. These are more towards the site possession. Okay. So these are the way that you learn how to identify the entitlement under the contract. Okay. Majority of the 24.3 is on the extension of time. Very few are outside the extension of time. If you use everything to claim under 24.3, you could be in trouble. Okay. Next, we go on to the NSCs. Extension of time to NSCs. This one is a contractually valid EOT. So this one, extension time to NSCs. Please remember, there are two situations. Okay. Number one, EOT by the architect. Okay. And number two, EOT ID. So this NSAs got two categories. Situation, EOT by the architect. Okay, so this one is extension of time by the architect. So this item, the architect's or the employer's action by instructing the NSAs, it means that the NSA's works are delayed. If NSA's works are delayed, then the main contractor's works will be delayed. So the granting of the NSA's extension of time is equals to the granting of the main contractor extension of time. Okay. So now the relevant ground. So the relevant ground, you have to look into the NSA's document. Okay. The subcontracts document. Majority are quite similar to the main contract event. See here, the relevant events, you have to look at the expressly provided under the NSA's contract. Okay? Yeah. The procedures must follow strictly. Notification and everything. So please remember, if you are working for NSAs, these are the things that you need to look into. If you are evaluating NSAs, then these are the documents that you have to refer. Okay, so please remember, don't simply use the main contractor item and then evaluate the NSAs item. It could be items that are slightly different. Okay, so once the EOT granted, the NSAs will have a certificate from the architect, and the contractor also receive a certificate from the architect. Okay, so also the reasons or the grounds must be given. So these are the new requirements. Okay, so that the NSAs can reprogram their work. Once granted already, the NSAs can reprogram their work, so that the obligation under the contract, whether the main contractor, the NSAs, need to be complied. So this is how the NSAs items on EOT. It is exactly the same as the main contractor, but the clause reference or documents are different. We are taking okay, we're taking the 5 minutes break. So 4:43, 4:48. So we meet up at 4:48. $4.48. So see you at 4.48, 4:48. $175. There are a few more. $14. Stay absent. 14. Okay. So you can scan. Okay. Okay, 180. Another 9 of them absent. 9 of them. Okay, welcome back. We'll continue on this loss and expense under PAM 2018. But before that, as usual, can you see the screen share? Reply, please. Can you see the screen share? Okay, good. Thanks a lot. Yes. So we proceed now. So what is the consequence of granting extension of time? Already explained above. It will trigger the rights for the contractor to claim loss and expense in relation to items that is appearing under clause 24.3a to O. Okay, so once the architect decided that the contractor is entitled to the loss and expense under the contract, that is, the events are under 24.3a to 24.3o. So under clause 24, they have to evaluate it. The architect will ascertain the amount due to the contractor after the contractor has submitted all the particulars. As usual, all the particulars must be submitted. So this is a very brief so-called introductory on how to entitle for the payment, what the architect to do. Okay, the procedure is below. It's exactly similar to extension of time procedure. Okay, evaluation, submission is exactly. So once you know the extension of time procedure on getting the extension of time, this one is just slight rephrasing of the correct PAM 2018 clause for your rights for loss and expense. Repeat, the steps are quite identical with your extension of time claim evaluation. By the contractor action to be taken and also for the consultant action to be taken. Okay, so the ascertain the amount is not just like that. There are procedures to be complied by the contractor before the architects evaluate. And then this sum will be added to the contract sum in future, and the contract sum will be adjusted accordingly. Okay, but in the interim, after the evaluation, they must be included in the interim certificate for payment. This is a very important point. A lot of times, consultants take advantage of the contractor, keeping all the loss and expense payment to be paid at the end of the project, which is very wrong. So the contractor need to be paid timely. It is cash flow problem. Okay, because this could be a ground that the contractor may ask for interest if they bring up the case to challenge the action of the architect. Okay, so now we go back to these details we have covered already. I'll go through this once more. In order to entitle for loss and expense, it must happen this way: the regular progress of the work of any section affected. Okay, so this is the important requirement. So regular progress of the work or any section of the work affected materially by what is due to delay. Okay, majority is due to delay. Okay, so that's why clause 24.1 and clause 23 are closely interlinked. So the contractor incur loss. It doesn't mean automatically contractor can claim a lot of money. No. If it's affected, then the right is there. How much to claim? Contractor have to work out the loss and expense with support from your relevant document. That cannot simply just quote a figure. You need to support with the relevant document. On the time side, is already on the extension of time certificate. Okay, this activity you granted 20 days. You know 20 days will be the basis for the computation if you agree. Okay, if you don't agree, last time I applied 50 days, you only give me 20 days. If you don't agree, then you go for immediate arbitration. If the arbitrator says, okay, this figure is, instead of 20 by the consultants, contractor entitled is 40. So that 40 days will be the official one. Then your calculation for your loss and expense for that particular item. Repeat, for that particular item is not 20 or 50 that is applied by the contractor and the architect's evaluation, but by the arbitrator's final figure. So your loss and expense computation will be basing on 40 days for that particular activity. So I hope you are clear. So I repeat one time. Let's say contractor apply 50 days for extension of time, and the architect evaluate 20 days. If it is accepted by the contractor, the 20 days will be the basis to evaluate your loss and expense, and not your 50 days as applied earlier by the contractor. Scenario number 2, if the contractor don't agree with the 20 days evaluation, contractor can go for arbitration. And the arbitrator says, okay, after looking to all the details, the fair one is 40 days. So that 40 days is going to be final unless the employer or the contractor want to challenge it further, and this time it will go to the court already. Okay, so now we stop here. Okay, assuming that the arbitrator's decision is accepted by the contractor and the employer. So the contractor can make use of this 40 days to calculate your loss and expense, not the 50 days and not the 20 days. I hope you are clear. Okay, so this is how the loss and expense are computed. You need to, based on something objective, in this case, the extension of time that is under this section here, okay, or plus other so-called rights, but under a different clause. So you need to make use of all this to link them up properly. So all claims must be well supported, especially your contractual claim. Your clause reference have to be there to make it strong. Okay, yeah. So these are the ground for loss and expense claim. So I won't go through the one because it's already, I mentioned to you, is 24. 1A is the steps. Okay, so these are the steps that contractor need to comply. Step number 1, in order to have a loss and expense claim, is exactly that the contractor applying for extension of time. Okay, so when you apply for extension of time, it is important for the contractor to submit 2 letters. One letter is for extension of time. One letter is for loss and expense. Try not to merge the 2 together. Are you clear? So it's important. Next time you are working for a contractor, then this is a better method. Rather than in one letter, then you put in loss and expense, extension of time inside that letter. It will be very confusing when you want to compile your claim. Try to pick it up, okay, because the clause reference are different. Okay, so but the procedures for extension of time and loss and expense is exactly the same. In order to get your right for loss and expense, step number 1 by the contractor, have to use clause 24.1a. Extension of time is clause 23.1a. See here? Loss and expense 24.1a. Need to give notice to the architect to claim for the loss and expense. Okay? When to submit your notice, the first notice, exactly the same as in your EOT. In this case, the clause are different. You also need to submit within 28 days of AI or CAI or the start of something relevant. Clear? So this is a condition precedent for your entitlement. Condition precedent. Okay? So without doing that, your rights are gone. Contractually are gone. Then you can only claim under common law already. Your contractual right, if you don't follow, gone. Then is there possible to claim further? Answer is yes, but no more under the contract, under the PEM. You go under the common law. Okay, so common law, the requirement could be slightly different. And on top of that, the common law claim, you need the service of the lawyer, because your consultants or your expert helping you, if you are a contractor, you can't, because common law, you have to go to the open court. Next, after the events are over, then the clause 20 41B now becomes operational. Okay, so when the events are already completed for the loss and expense event, so you have still within 28 days. After these events are completed, you have to inform the architects and QS your full details. Within 28 days, all the particulars you need to send. A contractor shall, that means must, and calculation to support your claim. Okay, contractor must. Shall here means must. Mandatory. Send everything. If you fail, your rights are also gone. Contractual rights are gone, then the common law rights takes over. So the common law rights, you can do the claim within the 6 years duration of this contract. Okay, so you got a longer period. This one you only got 28 days. Common law claim, how long? You have how many days? You got your 6 years to put forward your claim. You have 6 years to claim from the date of this contract. The safest is from the date of this contract, 6 years for you to claim. Okay, so it's up to you. That is under the common law. More often than not, you claim contractually. By the time it's so long, then everything will be forgotten already. So please the essence of the time. Okay, so if contractor fail to submit within time stated contractually, it shall deem that the contractor waives the right, means give up the right. Waives the right means give up the right for the entitlement. So it's exactly the same for your extension of time. Okay, so what are things to keep? Contractor must keep contemporaneous record for whatever supporting document that is needed and send it to the architect and the QS for evaluation. Okay, so all this need to be done timely manner. Okay, so if there are any additional information required, then the contractor need to comply. Okay, this is as usual. If everything submitted properly, then no need. Okay, if not, then any additional document you have to comply. So these are the events I stated earlier, 243A to O, which we run through just now under your PEM. I go first to the end, O. See here, O. So these are the events entitled the contractor to claim for the loss and expense. The rest, without all this, these clauses are additional to your EOT clause. So you can make use of this to claim loss and expense for 30.7, 30.8 that is happening. Article 3, 4, 5, and 6 that is happening are additional to your extension of time clause. See here, clause 33.1. So these are the additional clause over your EOT clause. If it's not mentioned, it will be EOT clause already. Clear? So these are the additional on top of the EOT clause that entitle you for loss and expense. 21.4. That is site possession. Okay. So these are the site possession item. Yeah, this one are additional to your additional EOT requirement. Okay, so please study them in relation to your EOT item. Okay, you cut the EOT item and then put it side by side, then you will know already what I'm talking. Which are the clause entitled, which are the clause not entitled. Okay, so if anything not written, no other clause, it must be referred to your EOT clause already. So procedure to be adopted is exactly the same as what you're going to apply for your EOT. Okay, yeah, your right to reimburse must follow the procedure to be strictly complied. Okay, see the word here, must be followed, strictly comply. If you don't follow, your rights extinguish. Okay, so fail to operate it, your right to reimbursement under this is going to be gone. Then you go for the ordinary process of law. This one you have to go to your common law already. Ordinary process of law, you have to go to your okay. So this is important things why I will repeat and repeat so that you never forget about all this what I'm saying here. Okay. So it is not every loss and expense recover under the contract. Okay, when you got the rights. Okay, so why this statement is so is a comparison between your EOT and your loss and expense clause. This is the meaning here. Not every loss and expense is recovered under the contract. Okay, under the contract it specifically says that these are the clause 23A to O are your right for loss and expense for those due to extension of time and those not due to extension of time. But majority, I can say, almost like 90% is under the extension of time category. Okay, so no every item recover under the common law. Okay, so you need to consult the lawyer whether this item due to the breach of contract by the employer can you claim under the common law. If you fail to achieve your rights under the contract, there is a possibility to claim under the common law. But under the common law, you must check and see whether this breach by the owner or whatever, is it claimable. So that's why I say here is not every loss is recovered at law. So this is the basic meaning. Okay, so you need to find out under the common law whether the item is claimable. More often than not, majority of them are claimable, but a lot of support system to come in. Okay, so this is under the so whether you entitled to claim or not. This is a very important word at common law. It must be the direct loss. Okay, so at common law, you want to claim, you cannot claim something consequential. You must claim something for the direct loss. There must be a causal link. See, direct loss here means a direct. It means here there will be a. There must be a causal link. The so-called breach. And there's a breach and then also and the loss. So this must be established. The causal link must be established. If you didn't establish this causal link as you study under your basic law, your claim is going to be rejected. Why is rejected? You look into the so-called it is too So the damage is too remote. No? It is too remote means what? Damages is too. I hope you are clear. I'm bringing back your common law or your basic contract things in here just to refresh your memory. I think some of them already blur already. Okay, so I'm bringing back to refresh your memory. The word direct means there must be a causal link between the breach and the loss. So why it is so? Because the loss it is too remote. If it's too remote, no, because damage is too remote, it's not claimable. Or I put it away, it is too remote. So the causal link is not there, it means it is too remote. Now that is the meaning. Meaning it is too remote when the causal link is not there. Okay. So there will be a direct result of the specified cause. This is the causal link principle. Okay. So this is under the common law claim. You want to claim, they must establish the cause and effect. Then your entitlement is strong. If not, your entitlement is not strong. So we focus more towards contractual, but this one, since under this area, sometimes there's a possibility the contractual rights are exhausted, then you can go for these common law rights. Okay. So laws must be arose that happens between this particular cause and effect. If not, your rights are extinguished. So this is the common law. So this one now, we go back to this. The steps that you need to follow for your loss and expense entitlement. Okay. So this is the first step, written application, under which clause it happened. You have to identify them properly. Okay. That's a step. So when to do it? Within 28 days of AI or CAI. It's typical from your extension of time, exactly the same. Okay. So this is the condition precedent. Whether you want to claim for your contractual or common law. So in common law, I say there are 6 years. But before that, you need to put forward your so-called notification. Yeah? So your notification for your contractual claim can be used as a notification for your future common law. Okay. Although if you didn't do it, then the common law gives you at least 6 years to get your paperwork done. Okay. If you have done it already, then it will be much easier to pursue under your common law claim. The next thing will be 24 1B. Okay. 24 1B. So this one is after the whole thing is completed, when the matter referred to have been ended. See here? So within the 21 days after the activity ended, then you need to submit, the contractor submit the complete everything to the QS on your claim. If you don't do that, your rights could be extinguished unless you are given the extension of time, unless the architect agree to give you a longer period. If not, then your rights could be extinguished. So in the event the architect needs further information, then you have to provide. But please remember, architect cannot keep on making of this item to delay evaluation. Okay, must be fair. You can ask, but there must be genuine situation and not playing for time. Each time when the time due already, so you haven't evaluate, then something out to the contractor for something that is so-called missing. Okay, so then you got another time again already. So please be careful. Don't act something unfairly, non-professionally. After that, then the calculation can be computed. Architect write further details if really that are missing. If they really totally comply, then the architect must commence doing your evaluation already. Okay. So as usual, all this submission, if there are query, can be done before the final claim. But to me, as I say, the submission is try to do timely within the 28 days provided. If you delay, there's a possibility the last boat to catch or last train to catch is before the final submission. It is not so good to wait until this date. It is because of the time frame given to you within 28 days. Okay, so please try to adhere to the 28 days. But if the event, this one, the details are not available yet because of certain issues here and there, then it can be dragged on until this is the worst time frame. Okay, but important, your rights, if you don't have this done properly, 24(1)(a), the first step, if you didn't do it, your rights are gone already. Okay, so this is the most important to the architect that need to be done. Same case for your extension of time. This is the first step. If your first step is done already, your second step is not done so correctly. It's not so bad. Okay, why? I mentioned there is a last boat for you to take. Okay, this is your last boat for you to take. Okay, but if the first step 4(1)(a) is not done, there is no boat for you to take. I repeat, if 24(1)(a) is not done, there is no boat for you to take because your rights are gone under the contract. Okay, so 24(1) is done. Then if you miss out 24(1)(b), not so bad. But the evaluation and all these things will be much longer at the discretion of the architect already because you're waiting for the last boat. This is your last boat for you to submit. So these are the things, small things for you to think about when you are starting to work that time, when to submit. Okay, so to me, it's good to submit timely rather than waiting for the last boat or train to submit. And remember, always step number 1 must be complied for your EOT and also for your time. Okay, if the step number 1 is not complied, your contractual rights are extinguished. You can only fall back to your common law rights only. Okay, so you must show that these are the things that happen. Okay, so whether they are delayed or disrupted. So what is the difference between delay? When you ask for this, the delay, EOT is granted. Okay, when you are claiming under disruption, the work is and the is. This is a very important understanding. Delay, you are affected and then your contract time will be extended. Okay, disrupted, your contract duration will not be affected, but your work is affected. Okay, the work is disrupted. Okay, disrupted means your productivity goes down. Disrupted is affecting productivity. Your completion time is not affected. So this is a very big difference. Disrupted, or put here, affected. Okay, so this is the meaning here. Disrupted means productivity affected. Then you submit your productivity calculation. EOT 1, you submit your prolongation cost and then your prelim item claim. Okay, so these are the two big difference in terms of your claim submission. Okay, Yeah. So you must always claim timely so that it will be in your favor. Do not leave your claim in the last minute. It will be at the mercy of the consultant. Okay, so these are important points. And also on top of that, if the architect and the QS try to, what should I say, console you to claim later or to reduce or adjust. So you must resist the architect who say to postpone your claim and so on. So, or to reduce your claim and all these things, you have to stick to your so-called professional rights. Okay. So if you are dissatisfied, as usual, all evaluation by the architect is always reviewable by the arbitrator. Okay, you must register your dissatisfaction immediately so that you can take this in through your arbitration. So your claim, mediation is also possible, but to me, it's up to individual. I prefer to go for immediate arbitration. Okay. So this is how this clause under your loss and expense 24 operate. Okay. So same case on clause 24.4 is for the architect to evaluate the loss and expense and add to the contract sum. That this one is future paper exercise. Important. Interim certificate, and then it must be added to it. Once the loss and expense is computed, it have to be included in the interim certificate, and then after that, the contractor can make use of the money. That is the most important. Loss and expense added to the contract sum is at the end of the day. This is a contract sum adjustment. Okay, that one is paperwork only. It's good for the QS. Okay, but to the contractor, what I want is the money. So please remember that. So with that, we come and end to this topic already. So now we take few minutes break. I will continue with the section 1.15. Okay. So 5 minutes break is 5:27. 5:27. We'll continue at 5:27. See you at 5:27. Go and take a break for your drinks, for your toilet and everything. And then we'll see you again at 5:27. Welcome back, everyone. We continue on topic 1, section 1.15, related to completion of the project. Okay, so can you see the screen and all these things? Are they working properly? Feedback to me, please. Are they working properly? Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah. So under completion, you must understand the clause 15 well. Okay. Clause 15. Okay. These are the few clauses that you need to remember. Completion. After the completion already, the commencement of the defects liability should start. Okay. So clause 15 is the main clause and subclauses related to completion. What you need to do is important. You read this one, you may not understand. So please remember, I will let you know what are the steps needed and what are the things that are done that you cannot see from this description. Okay, so generally, the works, if you consider as completed, then the contractor must trigger all this. Okay, so the contractor will make use of which clause to inform the consultants? Clause 15.2. See, the contractor must give written notice within 14 days of this happening. So this is the first step. If it's completion, this is the first step. Clause 15.2 is the first step for the contractor to take action. Okay. Without this first step, the completion certificate will never be issued by the architect. Because how come the architect is so busybody going to issue the certificate of practical completion to the contractor when the contractor didn't even ask for it? So it is important the contractor immediately shall forthwith. The word shall forthwith means immediately give notice to the architect. Either 15.2a happening or 15.2b that is happening. It is for the architect to come up with the decision. Okay. So, but before that, please understand the term completion. So, completion is a very subjective. Under clause 15.1a is the opinion of the architect. It's very subjective that the employer can make use of the work for the intended purpose. See here, this one is a very subjective. That's why contractor is always at the mercy of the consultant, because in order for this very important certificate to be issued, it is so subjective. There is no clear, simple definition, because the opinion of the architect, when the employer can have full use of the work intended. Full use of the word intended. I don't know what it actually means. Okay, the word full use of the word intended, because it's so-called blur. in the sense. Okay, yeah. And very important point, the work don't need to be perfectly completed. Okay, the works can have minor defects, but not major defects. So if with minor defects, the work can be considered completed. So these are the important one. Okay, so if it is a minor defect, then the architect can give a certificate completion, but there is an undertaking by the contractor to get it done within a certain time frame. So this one, I call it the first defect list to be attached to the CPC. Please be careful. Huh? This is the first defect list prepared and attached to the certificate of practical completion. So this is a very important item because in order for the architect to issue certificate of practical completion, more often than not, the work have to be almost 99.99%. But in this case, there are something more than that also acceptable. How to get it done? This is a very important steps that give the architect leeway to issue the practical completion certificate on condition contractor make a written undertaking, okay, to make good within a certain reasonable time. Okay, the word is reasonable time. The word reasonable time is more often than not depending on the contract duration. Okay, if the contract duration is short, the reasonable time will be shorter. If the contract duration is long, then the reasonable time will be longer. Okay, so this is a very important item, which you will never be able to extract it out from reading all these clauses. Okay, so this is a very first list. Then the other part, after the completion, there's a defect list. There are the subsequent lists already. That this is a very important. The first list attached to the CPC. Okay. So, or the user item clause 15.1b. This clause 15.1a. Okay. Or other express requirement need to be complied. Say the work practically is in the opinion of the architect plus other prerequisite which is expressly stated. For example, okay, the testing of the M&E items. You must test it to a certain standard, and also there are data requirement to be complied. Yeah. Other requirement expressly stated in the contract document as prerequisite. I can give you an example. M&E testing and commissioning, testing and commissioning with authority approval. So this is one of them, and there are many more. Okay, it's a prerequisite. Some of them, they may have multi-stages of testing. So you need to have all these multi-stages testing to be complied before you can give it your CPC. Okay. So now, if the contractor thinks that the works are completed, you need to submit. Once you submit already, then the architect will make use of clause 15.1a and b. whether to issue to you your CPC certificate or not. Okay. So how they decide? Then the architect will make use of clause 15.2a or 15.2b. Okay. So 15.2a is not practically completed, so rejecting you. So if the architect issue clause 15.2a to you, you know there are major defects to be rectified. Okay. So also extend a copy to the NSCs, stating the reason. Previously, no, now stating the reason. And this blue color one is additional. Okay. PEM 206 is not there. Okay, this one is new clause added under PEM 2018. PEM 206 is until here, stop already. Now 2018, this blue color here is added, specifying the works that are incomplete or the condition that have not been met or complied. Okay, so they're giving you the reasons. So that is to reject you. If they accept you, they will use 15.2b. Work is practically completed. So this one happy ending. Okay. So it's practically completed. You will receive the certificate of practical completion. So how to date your practical completion is important, because the moment that you submit and also the moment the architect check would have certain time frame. It may take 1 week, 1 month, and so on. Okay. So after you submitted already according to your clause 15.2, then architect will make use of clause 15.2a or 2b. Okay. If it's 2b, then another thing is, when does the CPC date to commence? Okay. So the date of CPC shall commence basing on this criteria. Okay. The date of receipt of contractor written undertaking to make good. Is it correct? Earlier we have this item, the first lease. The first lease. Okay. So this is the date of receipt of the contractor undertaking. If there is a lease to make good the defect. So this is the date. If there is no such thing, then the date will be the written notice by the contractor when you submit that document for the architect to come to inspect whether the work is completed. So this one is written undertaking. That is the date of receipt of written notice. See the difference? Written notice. Written notice is what date? Written notice is the date when the contractor submit the letter. Okay. Under 15.2a. This is the date here. Opinion by the contractor. Okay. Sorry. No, 15.2. Give a written notice so that then 14 days later or within 14 days, architect will go through. After going through already, whether accept or reject. Okay. Reject is 15.2a. Will give you the reason. Okay. Accept is 15.2b. So this is how the CPC issued and the process involved. Okay. Yeah. So what is the significance of the CPC? There are a lot of things, very important significant. We'll cover that maybe in a tutorial and so on. The significance of CPC plus others. So these are the process need to be complied by the architect. They give a copy to the contractor, employer, and nominated subcontractor, and so on. Okay. So now this is the important legal aspect. The moment CPC is issued, the rights of the contractor of the license given extinguished. So the contractor shall forthwith return subpossession to the employer. This means the right to the project site by the contractor is extinguished, comes to an end. Okay, so this is a very important. That means that the contractor is very interesting now. After CPC, the rights enter extinguished. If you entered your project site, contractor project site, after the CPC, it means that the contractor is a trespasser. Okay. After CPC, the contractor becomes a trespasser if he enters the site for defects liability works. Very strange, huh? So this is something not so correct. See, this is contractually, legally, this is happening. Okay, the contractors becomes after the CPC, the contractor becomes a trespasser if he enters the site for defects liability work. It's very strange. Okay, so this is, but more often than not, the employer will allow the contractor or the subcontractors to tidy up the things during the defects liability period. It could take between 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and even 3 years. Can you imagine? Okay, so in order not to be a trespasser, that means the contractor must go and get a valid letter or pass to enter the project site for the subcontractors, for suppliers, or whatever thing. So there's something for you to think about. It's very interesting here. Okay, if no, you can't see it. Just the additional things that is put forward for you. Okay, because the license come to an end. In the earlier stage on site possession, you give the project to the contractor. The site possession is the day where the license starts for the contractor. And at the day the CPC or revoked by the employer, the site possession, the license end. License end, there are two types. One of them is completion of the work. That is, you achieve your CPC. Another one is you are chased out by the employer or your works are terminated. Okay. Then another clause is clause 15.3. What is the significance of clause 15.3? Okay. So this 15.3 is more towards the so-called defects that are appearing during the defects liability period. Okay. Applicable where the contractor shall comply the defects and minor under the clause 15.1a, that is an initial one. This one is the initial one, plus the defects that can happen after the CPC is issued. In this case, this is more towards tied back to your 15.1a. Okay, so the contractor to comply the item as listed within the 15.1a, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, so what happened if the contractor didn't comply? These are the actions that the employer can take. In the event contractor failed to comply with the undertaking, employer have these rights under the contract. Okay, so the consultant will assist the employer to invoke this right. Okay, so number one, the contractor can be given additional time by the employer, okay, to comply with the remedial work. That's number one. And number two, if I don't want to give the contractor enough time, then the employer will engage another person to do the remedial work. Okay, and all the costs incurred will be charged to the contractor, and then the money to be taken out from the set off under clause 30.4. So under the clause 30.4 is a direct deduction. Okay, so type 2. Type 3, accept the defects work of the minor nature. So type 3 is to accept tell the contractor, you don't have to do any remedial work. Okay, so then Mr. or Miss Architect or the QS, please do a discount. How much it is going to be? And accepted, it will be set off under your clause 30.4. Okay, so these are the 3 methods that the employer can take for the first defect list. This is the first defect list. Okay, under this one is the first defect list. Okay, so this is a very first defect list that this thing is happening. Okay, then you go to the subsequent one. Yeah, 15.4 is for the recurring defects. Clause 15.4, you use it for the recurring defects. Okay, clause 15.4 is for the recurring defect. During the DLP. Okay. This is the important point. Clause 15.4, you use this one here. Oh, sorry. It's 15.5. Huh? The recurring defect is 15.5. Yeah, sorry. Huh? This one is under 15.5. This one is a special. 15.4 is a very special clause. Sorry. So this one is 15.5. Okay. So 15.4 is a very special clause. This one is defect list. So this very special defect list means this is the last defects list before the expiry of the DLP. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, 15.4 is a very special defect list. What do you mean? It is the last defect list before the expiry of the DLP. Okay. Yeah. So any defects appear within the DLP period, you deliver it as a schedule. You deliver this list as a architect will prepare the schedule of defects. Okay. So this list is called the last list before the expiry of the defect liability period. The architect will prepare this as a schedule of defects. Okay, and then deliver to the contractor within 14 days of the expiry of the defects liability period. Okay, so not later than 14 days after the expiry of the DLP. Let's say the defects liability period expire on 1st January 2022. Okay, so after the expiry of this 1st January 2022, within 14 days, this list will come out. So this one is called under clause 15.4. That list is called the schedule of defects, or you call it the last list of the defect. Once this schedule of defects is rectified, then the defects liability period will be over and CMGD will be issued. Okay, so the contractor will make good the defects within a reasonable time. Usually, the time frame will be 28 days after the receipt. So these are the time given. If you don't, then there's a possibility the employer may take this action. The employer may take this action. If the time expires already, then the employer may give extra time or engage other people to do or ask you to leave it and then do a discount. Okay, so this is the important of clause 15.4. So if the contractor failed to attend to the defects, I mentioned to you earlier just now, what can the employer do? It's exactly what I said earlier. Employ other people to carry out the defects. And then charge everything to you. Okay, so all the costs incurred will be charged to the contractor by direct deduction under clause 30.4. Okay, yeah, or architect, consent of the employer, leave the defects there and don't have to make good, but ask the QS and the architect to work out a figure set off by the employer under clause 30.4 also. So these are the options available for the employer if the last list of the defects is not rectified. This is the last list. So please be careful. Just now is the first list of the defects, 15.3. 15.4 is the last list. 15.5 is the recurring list. The recurring list. So I will continue this one. I will stop here today. So please go back if you want to read. Stop it. Today is 6H. Okay. So I will continue with this in the next session. Okay. So now we look at the attendance list. Search. 184. 5 of you are still absent. Are there 5? There are 5 of you absent. Okay, this one. Kong Chi Cheong, Lim Xiang Yun, Lim Yi San. 3 already. There are another 2 more. Wong Yet Yu and Po Yit Hao. So 5 of you are absent unless you got valid ground. If not, then 80% of your oral is important. Okay, so I export it. Okay, save. And then here, just let me check through. I don't know why the figure here is different from the high system. Okay, so I will stop the recording. Are there any